Sean Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. And what was a remarkable week in this country. For the first time in our history, the FBI raided the home of a former president. The FBI descended on former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago compound in Florida on Monday and searched his residence and safe. Sources say it is tied to an investigation into Mr. Trump's removal of classified and, in some cases, top secret documents from the White House. Attorney General Merrick Garland signed off on that raid.
Every socialist country, they go after the rival, okay? And this is what's going on here.
They know that he's guilty of something, and he's going to go down for this, and it's going to be a great day, man.
That pretty much illustrates the divide in this country over the former president. What does it all mean? Where is it headed? And was the FBI search absolutely necessary? Paul Charlton is a former U.S. attorney for Arizona from 2001 to 2007, appointed by former President George W. Bush, now with the law firm Denton's U.S. Paul, good to see you.
Nice to see you, John.
Paul, let's start with the obvious. We learned a lot more on Friday afternoon about what they were looking for. We still don't have a lot of specifics, still a lot of redactions, but this is serious, serious business. What's alleged here, espionage? I mean, this stuff carries serious prison time, potentially.
Carries serious prison time, John, but perhaps even more importantly for our republic, serious ramifications that a former president would have at his personal residence evidence that reflected espionage or destruction of classified information. Remember, this isn't just the FBI's view, this isn't just Merrick Garland's view. A federal magistrate judge, an independent branch of government, reviewed the evidence and found that there was probable cause to believe that the president's personal residence was evidence of espionage and classified information. So this is indeed a very serious document and a day with a great deal of gravity for all of us.
Paul, since you were in the middle of stuff like this for years, maybe not at this level with a sitting president or a former president, but what happened? What do you suspect was the breakdown between June and now when they were apparently talking with the former president to try to work out some deal to get these records back, and then everything kind of went nuclear on Monday with the raid of the president's residence? What do you suspect happened here?
That's a great question, John. And let me begin by saying that every federal search warrant that I have sought and obtained in my career as a federal prosecutor had a dual purpose. First was to gather evidence of a crime, but the second, and perhaps just as important here, was to protect that evidence, to take it and put it in a secure location. In this instance, what this search warrant tells all of us is that a judge had probable cause to believe that the former president had at his personal residence classified information that was at risk of being destroyed or at risk of being used in, again, this is extraordinary, espionage. So it was not only reasonable, but I think many could argue that it was necessary that this evidence be removed from the personal residence and put in a secure location.
Paul, if this stuff is so sensitive, why the delay between when the judge granted the warrant to go in, which was Friday, and you wait until Monday? I mean, I don't sense the urgency there. If it took, I mean, if this is that important, you'd work on Saturday, wouldn't you?
It's a great question. And one of the components to this search warrant, John, that we don't yet have available to us is the affidavit. The affidavit of probable cause, sworn to under oath by a law enforcement officer that would have provided that kind of detail. Exactly what transpired here. How is it that this case went from one in which the FBI and the Department of Justice was having a dialogue with the former president's lawyers to one in which they felt it necessary to execute a search warrant? That's the kind of information that would be in the affidavit, and it's not yet available.
Yeah, we just don't have it. And I think that would also really give the predicate that may have swayed the judge to say, okay, you can go do this. This is, though, highly unusual, is it not?
It's never occurred in the over 220 years of our republic's history, John. It is something about which scholars and people who think about how it is our republic will continue to survive talk about often and caution us, both in the past and as we go forward in the future. When a successor administration looks back upon its predecessor administration for possible crimes, that sort of look back, that sort of review of events that have happened previously has to be done with great care and great caution to make sure that we are not abusing the laws in any way, and so that when and if we do accuse a former president of wrongdoing, it is only in the most extraordinary of circumstances.
I want to play, and we're going to do number 3 first, of Merrick Garland talking about this, because this gets to the issue of whether justice is being administered equally for both sides of the political aisle. Listen to the Attorney General.
Faithful adherence to the rule of law is the bedrock principle of the Justice Department and of our democracy. Upholding the rule of law means applying the law evenly, without fear or favor. Under my watch, that is precisely what the Justice Department is doing. All Americans are entitled to the even-handed application of the law, to due process of the law, and to the presumption of innocence.
Okay, Paul, obviously on the right side of the spectrum, people say, what is going on with the Justice Department? And it seems an unending desire to get Donald Trump. And not a lot of interest, for instance, with Hillary Clinton, who committed several felonies by having that server off in her residence. Nothing happened. Hunter Biden, so far, nothing's happened. The Russian collusion deal that really sullied the DOJ's and FBI's reputation for really what turned out to be nothing. But it really dusted up the country for 4 years. I mean, you can see where people go, wait a minute, I don't like the looks of this.
Well, I think that's why, John, the Attorney General of the United States took this extraordinary step. In my career, I have never seen a motion to unseal a search warrant in a situation such as this one. Why do it now? For that very reason, to gain some transparency, not complete insight into all of the evidence, but some insight into what probable cause there was to execute this search warrant, so that those who might doubt whether or not this was a fair and impartial decision and not one politically driven could see the gravity, the seriousness of the allegations here. And it would be hard to think of a statute that was more serious, an allegation that was more impugnative than one in which you are looking for evidence of espionage at a former president's residence.
But if you've got the current administration, which could very well face Donald Trump again, going after him, this obviously raises conflict of interest questions, right? And they've got to all be aware of this.
That's why the Department of Justice is supposed to be independent of the White House. The White House has said that they did not know about this search warrant. They did not know about this impending search of the former president's residence. And that sort of separation is going to be important. The other aspect of this, John, that I think is going to be important for us all to remember as well, especially those who may doubt whether or not this administration and Department of Justice have acted appropriately, is that this will all eventually be destroyed. These kinds of sealed documents, this sort of ongoing investigation cannot remain secret forever. And what evidence there was, the specific and detailed description of that evidence, will eventually be known by all of us. And then we can make the right judgment. For right now, what we know is that the executive branch in the form of the Attorney General and the judicial branch in the form of a federal judge have both found probable cause to believe that evidence of espionage was to be found at the former president's residence. And not just espionage, John, but possible alteration or destruction of classified documents.
Paul, we keep hearing that the former president, that a president has constitutional power to declassify all kinds of documents. But there are limits to that, are there not? I mean, when you get into top secret defense-related stuff, you can't just, even if you say, I'm declassifying it, that's not the end of it, right?
That's exactly so, John. But what the government has done here is to avoid the allegation of statutes that would give a former president that kind of defense. It would allow a former president to say, this may once have been top secret, but I have deemed it no longer to be top secret. Instead, they have elected to focus on statutes that say, if you obtain information with the intent to do harm to the country, that's espionage. That's the statute that is alleged to have occurred here. Again, I want to just pause on that, because I never thought in my lifetime, I don't suspect anybody would, that a former president would have that kind of evidence at his personal residence. Again, this isn't a charge. This doesn't mean that it occurred. This doesn't mean that the president was involved in espionage. It means that there was probable cause to believe that they would find evidence of espionage at the president's residence. That is about as serious an allegation as you could possibly make. And if the Attorney General or the FBI were to turn a blind eye to that kind of evidence, the question would be, what is the greatest treasonous act? Those who ignore that evidence, or those who may have been involved in promoting that kind of evidence?
Final thing, Paul, there's only about 20 seconds left. Do you have a high degree of confidence in these people running this investigation, or do you think it's become too politicized?
Here's why I have a high degree of confidence in the people who are running this investigation. One of the individuals involved in asking that this document be unsealed is a career prosecutor. He is in charge of counterintelligence, which also says a lot about the concerns within the Department of Justice. In my personal experience, having lived within that institution for 16 years, it is the career men and women who make the difference. It is the career men and women who are not afraid to stand up to the political appointees and say they will not violate their oath or the Constitution if politics takes precedent over what is right. That's why I think we need to have confidence in what has happened here. And I would also, as a note of caution, John, again say, this is an allegation that a crime occurred. Only the evidence of that crime was to be found. The next part of this, does the Attorney General charge the president, the former president of the United States? There's a long ways from being determined here.
Paul Charlton, former U.S. Attorney, 2001 to 2007. Paul, great to see you. I appreciate your time, as always.
Thank you.
Great to see you. When we come back on Newsmaker Saturday, Brandon Judd, the head of the Border Patrol Council, on the ending of the Remain in Mexico policy. We're back in a minute. Welcome back. This week, the Biden administration announced it was ending the Remain in Mexico policy implemented by former President Trump. This controversial program saw migrants return to Mexico for the duration of their immigration hearings rather than being released into the U.S. and waiting for their hearings here, many of whom never returned to go to their hearings. It resulted in tent courts being set up along the southern border, and nearly 70,000 migrants returned under the program. Brandon Judd is a Border Patrol agent of 25 years, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, representing more than 17,000 border agents. Thank you, Brandon, for joining us.
It's good to be with you. Thank you.
Tell me what this means, losing Remain in Mexico for your agents.
Oh, this is going to be disastrous when you look at what we're currently facing. If you look at the numbers, if you compare when Trump left office to when Biden took office, the moment he stepped into office, he did away with all of the policies and programs. And the problem with that is he didn't replace them. And so we saw this huge influx in the number of people, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. The cartels, when they recognized that people were going to be released in the United States, they were able to go throughout the entire world. This is not just Mexico, not just Central America. This is throughout throughout the entire world, and they were able to advertise their services, and they were able to tell people that if they give them thousands of dollars, they'll get them to the United States-Mexico border, and if they cross the border illegally, they're going to be released into the United States. And the cartels are making billions of dollars off of these policies, and we're the ones that are constantly trying to deal with it, and we're behind the eight ball. If you look in Yuma right now, at any given time, 90% of Border Patrol resources are doing administrative duties rather than patrolling the border. This creates huge artificial gaps in our coverage, and this allows the cartels to be extremely successful, not only with illegal immigrants, but also with drugs that are coming into our communities and killing so many of our children.
So, Brandon, just to kind of circle back on that, when you flood the border with human beings, that becomes job one for you guys, and then it leaves the border exposed for them to backdoor shipments of dope, of fentanyl, of whatever it is.
That's correct, and it's not dope, fentanyl, marijuana, not just marijuana, but cocaine, but it also brings in criminal aliens. It brings in aliens from special interest countries, and when you look at the Remain in Mexico program, when we're able to send people back, when we're able to drop illegal immigration to 45-year lows, or even just what a normal month should be, then we can go after the criminality. We can go after the cartels. We can put a dent in their profits. If you look right now at the cartels, there is no turnover in all of these different organizations. That means that they're all fat and happy because they're making billions of dollars right now. We want instability in those cartels. We want to be able to go after their profits. We want to be able to go after their products. But right now, our hands are tied dealing with illegal immigrants and a flood, something that we've just never even dreamed of, let alone seen before. You've been doing this 25 years. This is the worst you've seen in this last couple of years. Oh, this isn't even close. We've never even seen anything close to what we're dealing with. In a typical year, we should be arresting between 30 to 40,000 people. We're arresting over 200,000 people right now. There's been nothing like this before. We're setting records month over month, week over week, even day over day. And there just doesn't seem to be a ceiling with this administration. You would have thought conventional wisdom would have said that once we got to an explosion, this administration would have done something. They haven't done anything. I don't believe that there is a ceiling with the Biden administration. I want to play something. This was hearings on Capitol Hill with Alejandro Mayorkas, who runs all of this. I want you to hear his answer and some of the give and take that got pretty salty. Here it is.
You're not preventing entries. You're encouraging it.
My constituents want you impeached because they believe you've committed treason.
Some of those people are going to commit crimes, aren't they?
Undoubtedly.
Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. We have effectively managed an unprecedented number of non-citizens seeking to enter the United States.
Brandon, when you hear that, what do you make of that answer?
There is nothing that upsets me more than to listen to political rhetoric from people that are supposed to be protecting the American people. When you listen to what Mayorkas said, all we have to do is look at the facts. Let's look at the number of people that have been able to enter our country illegally and get away, that were able to evade apprehension. There's been close to 1 million people just since the Biden administration has been in office. We have released 1.5 million people into the United States. That's not operational control. And then on top of that, in 2021, we broke records for the number of overdose deaths here in the United States, and all of those drugs are coming in from Mexico, from our southwest border. That is not operational control. Those are facts, and when you look at those facts, you can clearly conclude we do not have operational control. And somebody like me who is out there patrolling the border, I can personally tell you we do not have control of our border.
Brandon, I have asked everybody on the show when we've done stories on border, and I think I asked you last time, what is the goal of the Biden administration policy, which seems to be kind of a free-for-all down at the border? What do you think the goal is for this? What is the point of doing this?
Well, the point is to appease the open border activists. When you look at the White House and you look at the number of people that are in the policy departments, you've got a bunch of activists. When you look at DHS itself, the political appointees in DHS, they're a bunch of activists. They're open border activists. So what they're doing is they're appeasing all of these different groups that want open borders, that want continued illegal immigration, and that's exactly what they're giving them. They feel that these people will go to the polls to vote, so they're trying to keep them in their back pocket to ensure that they're going to vote for them.
I want to get your take on what's happening in New York and Washington, D.C. Governor Ducey here in Arizona, Governor Abbott in Texas. They've been sending buses of migrants to the Big Apple and to the nation's capital. And the mayors there and the governors have gone crazy watching this. And this is just a fragment of what you're dealing with on the border in the southern part of the United States. What do you make when these politicians, Adams in New York, Bowser, I think, in D.C., where these people are squawking about, you know, a few busloads of migrants coming, and they get really upset about it. And I suspect you might think, well, welcome to the club.
Well, what's so hypocritical about it is as long as it was being done under the cover of night, as long as HHS was flying planes into the metro New York area at night where nobody saw it, Mayor Adams had nothing to say about it. Mayor Bowser had nothing to say about it as long as those planes were coming at night and people didn't see it. But now that it's being done under the light of day, now that everybody is seeing it, it's out in the open, now the constituents in New York City they see that they're now going to have to take care of all these people, and they know it's going to come out of their tax dollars. So they're upset about it, and that's why you hear Mayor Adams talking about this. But he didn't care as long as nobody knew about it. But now that everybody knows about it, and that's the hypocrisy of our politicians. This is an easy fix, and if Mayor Adams wanted to fix this problem, all he would have to do is put his substantial power behind his words to the White House and ask them to actually fix the problem at the border. Not in New York City, but at the border. And that's what Governor Abbott is doing. That's what Governor Ducey are doing. They're sending this so that the public understands what's going on. It shines a spotlight on the issue. Now the mainstream media has to cover it, and the American public now we can have an honest conversation with the American people.
One more thing before we let you go. I've often wondered, I think you've articulated that the border agents that you represent are really unhappy with the current situation. You've lost a lot of people. They've retired. They're getting out. They're frustrated. Has there been a consideration of doing a vote of no confidence, either for the administration or for Mayorkas over this issue?
Absolutely. If the House, if the Republicans take back the House in 22 and they choose to impeach Mayorkas, if they called me as a witness, I would be happy to go up and testify on what we're seeing in an impeachment hearing on Secretary Mayorkas. He has not done the job that is necessary to secure the border for the safety and security of the American people, and that's what has to come first. Politics has to take a back seat to what's best for the American people, and he just hasn't done it. With President Biden, when you look at all of these policies, as we get closer to 24, I would have zero problem coming out with on behalf of the National Border Patrol Council, coming out with a vote of no confidence on President Biden.
And you think that would be what kind of numbers? Give me a percentage.
Oh, so when you look at federal government wide, people that belong, that are voluntary dues-paying members of unions, it's less than 50%. We boast a 90% organization rate amongst Border Patrol agents. They recognize that we're doing the best for them. They appreciate what we're doing, and that's why we have such numbers. Like I have zero doubt that the membership of the National Border Patrol Council would be behind this almost 100%.
Wow. Okay. Brandon Judd, great to see you, President of the National Border Patrol Council, which represents rank and file border agents. We had a little trouble with your signal, but Brandon, we heard your voice. Thank you. We'll be back in a moment on Newsmaker Saturday. Thanks again to our guests this week, Brandon Judd and former U.S. Attorney Paul Charlton. And thanks to you for continuing to support the program. We do appreciate it. If you want to see a prior show, and people ask all the time, fox10phoenix.com/newsmaker. You can get it there, or open up your phone app, get the QR code on your screen. That'll take you there as well. That's it for us. We'll see you next week on Newsmaker Saturday.